Hello everybody, this is Blackchick. This is my first arena video. Some of you may know me as Kangkong from World of Warcraft. A couple of friends have asked me to make a video on arena to give them some tips, and I thought I'd share what I know. Today I'll be covering a mage deck. It's pretty good. Currently I'm at 8 wins, and I think this deck should be able to reach at least 9. If I'm lucky, I can make 12. To start off, I'd like to talk about why I chose Mage. Mage is one of the better classes. It has good removal such as Frostbolt, Fireball, which I don't have, Polymorph, and of course Flame Strike, the ever so deadly Flame Strike. So Mage is one of the better classes in Arena, I feel, maybe along with Paladin and Druid and Hunter. Hunter is a bit more complicated to play, so I would pick probably Mage or Druid as if you're just picking it up. Okay, without further ado, let's go on to my deck. If you look at my mana curve here, it looks quite strange because I have a lot of 2s and 3s and 4s, practically no 5s, couple of 6 and 7 plus. Mage is one of the few classes where I think you will have more 7 plus because of Flame Strike. People have been asking me how many Flame Strikes is too many. I'm not really sure I can give you a real answer, but I think up to 3 is still good. 4 and above, maybe you might not need the 4th one. I think 3, up to 3 I'm comfortable with, yeah. So firstly, let's look at the creatures. At 2 drops, we have Bluegill Warrior and a couple of others. Bluegill Warrior is not actually a 2 drop. You don't want to play him on 2 because he gets killed easily by most hero powers. He's quite weak. So I think of him as a pure Frostbolt. So basically he's 2 cost to deal 2 damage without other special abilities. Sometimes he triggers stuff like Cult Master or gets pumped by buffs. Okay, that's an upside, but generally he's not something you would play actively on turn 2 into an open board. That leaves me with Fairy Dragon, which is great because it can't be targeted by hero spells or hero powers, especially Mage. Sorcerer's Apprentice, really good 2 drop for Mage because it synergizes well with your spells. Very good turn 3 play with Frostbolt because you can probably kill their 3 drop or 2 drop depending if you're playing first or not. Wild Pyromancer, pretty decent interactions with my spells such as Frostbolt and Arcane Intellect, the low cost spells. For a neat little board wipe if you need to deal 1 damage to everything. But generally a 3-2 body is always good. I would have preferred to have another real 2 drop. By real I mean 2 drops that you will play on turn 2. It could be anything like Loot Hoarder or another Fairy Dragon, even Bloodfen Raptor. But generally think about creatures when you will play them. Like if you play them on turn 2, they are considered 2 drops. If you would not play them on turn 2, then don't think of them as 2 drops. Yeah. The exception to Bluegill Warrior is if you are going second and your opponent plays a 3-2 or a X2, you can play Bluegill Warrior as a 2 drop and trade. Same can be said for Frostbolt. If you're on the play, don't think as Frostbolt as a 2 drop because it's unlikely that you will use on turn 2. If you have Frostbolt in your hand and you're going first, mulligan for a real 2 drop. Yeah. If you're going second and you have the coin, it's okay to consider Frostbolt as a 2 drop because you can kill your opponent's 2 drops. If he doesn't have a 2 drop, it's not a big loss because basically that means he's also missed his 2 drop. Yeah. 3 drops. I actually have a lot of 3 drops. I have 2 Iron Fur Grizzlies, a Jungle Panther, 3 Mind Control Techs, which are not very good in Mage, by the way, and Raging Worgen, who is awesome in Mage. Reason why I have so many 3 drops is because I picked up a couple early on. Like Mind Control Tech was my first pick over Demolisher and I think it was Angry Chicken or something, not very useful. I ended up with a lot of picks where I was forced to pick a 3-drop because I had other substandard cards. Honestly, I don't really like Mind Control Tech and Mage, because if your opponent knows what they're doing, they're not gonna have 4 creatures out anyway. They're gonna have be careful of Flame Strike, so not very good in Mage. I much rather have preferred at rare, probably like Imp Master or something like that, or even a different cost card altogether. Azure Drake would have been a great pick, but I didn't have that choice. Yeah. That said, having many 3-drops is okay for Mage, because on turn 10 you can play Flame Strike and 3-drop into Flame Strike and 3-drop, and that usually will win you the game. Also, if you have the coin, having multiple 3-drops means that you can hit your 2 better, because you can draw 2 3-drops and have one of them double as a 2. Yeah, that's really it. Jungle Panther, depending on your board situation, when you play him on turn 3, you might not want to attack with him because you don't want your opponent to be able to kill it. He trades favorably upwards against 4 or 5 drops, especially if you have Dark Iron Dwarf in your hand. Yep, so and now for the 4-drops. Dark Iron Dwarf, always a good 4-drop. One of the best, in fact. I think slightly below Yeti. It's debatable. I think Yeti is always good on Vacuum and Dark Iron Dwarf is not, and that's why Yeti always gets the pick. That said, if I've already maybe 2 Yetis, I might pick up 1 Dwarf anyway. I really like the ability. It's a huge swing. Gnomish Inventor, pretty good, although you don't always want to play him on turn 4 because you already have a lot of cards, so it's not like you're short of options. Usually I play him later on. If I have a real 4-drop such as Silver Moon Guardian, I generally always play him. Unless he has maybe a bunch of creatures with 2 toughness left, and this is a decent play on turn 4. My 4-drop slot is kind of varied, as I'll show you. So Gnomish Inventor, not really a 4 play. Silver Moon Garden, good on 4, of course. Spellbreaker, depending on the board state, it's a blowout against Twilight Drake. Otherwise, it's another utility creature that happens to be 4 cost, but you don't really play on 4. Real 4-drops would be like Violet Teacher. Not the best stats, but with my deck, pretty good interactions because I have quite a few spells, and you can get a free 1/1 Apprentice. Don't be too greedy by it. I mean, if you have no 4-drops and some spells in your hand, just play her out on turn 4. If she survives, you will usually get a free 1-drop 1/1 next turn, and that's usually more than good enough. Water Elemental is probably the best 4-drop for Mage. It single-handedly beats Rogue and Warriors just by attacking them to the face over and over again. And his stats are really good. 3/6 is really good, and Freeze, it's really understated. It's insane against rogues, really good against warrior too. Even guys like Shaman and Hunter who have a few weapons, sometimes you just completely knock them off their game because they can't attack with a weapon. Yep, and Ventricle Mercenary. It's the biggest 5-drop in the game. Not so good in my deck because I don't have too many cheap spells and removal. But still, all in all, a very good creature because the idea is that you don't want to play too many creatures a turn to play around AoE. So if you play Ventricle on 5, on turn 6 you can play a 3-drop, it's not the end of the world. Or you could use your hero power and cast like Arcane Intellect or something. If you can't kill your Ventricle, most likely you are gonna win anyway. Interesting point to note is that you can silence your own Ventricle if you really need to get around his drawback. This usually only really happens if I have him frozen by an opponent. Yes, you can silence to remove freeze. So if he gets frozen by like Frost Nova or something and you silence it, it's actually a double plus. Yep. Ideally I would have liked maybe another 5-drop, a Silverhand Knight, Azure Drake, Strangleton Tiger, something good, but in Mage 5 drops and above are not critical. 4 drops and below I would say are critical because of how Flame Strike plays. So it's okay that I don't have too many 5 drops. At 6 I have Argent Commander, probably the best 6 drop for neutral card. It's great. I mean it's like a removal that leaves a 4/2 body. It goes to the head for 4. It does everything. It's really good. Just pick Argent Commander. Some people think that Sunwalker is better. I don't really agree. I think the impact and immediacy of Argent Commander knocks out the extra toughness over Sunwalker. Simply because you can play Sunwalker and your opponent has a chance to answer it with cards like Polymorph, Hex, or Silence, and that would be bad. Argent Commander always does something when it comes into play. A lot of the arena, not the best 6 drop. I didn't really need this, but I picked it up early on in the game when I didn't have any high drops, and I was presented with a choice of like 3 drop Law of the Arena, so I just picked the 6. He's not the worst card. He's better than Booty Bay Bodyguard because Booty Bay is trade sometimes with even a 3 drop. At least Law of the Arena will generally take out a 5 or maybe trade with a 6. Not the greatest card, but you can't always have great cards in your deck. Sunwalker, another really good card. Taunt Divine Shield really stops aggressive decks in their tracks. If your opponent is not playing Mage or doesn't have a hero power that can break the Divine Shield, it can be very game breaking. And yeah, so that's all the creatures in my deck. Spells, well, first Frostbolt, right here, Frostbolt. Very good mage spell. It's good early on, it's good late. It's good early on to kill a 2 or 3 drop. It's good late to free something and finish it off your hero power. Late game it actually usually lets you do up to like 5 damage because you can Frostbolt and then hero power. He can't attack, and then next turn you can hero power again. So it's good for killing even something like a Lord of the Arena, for example. Yeah. Arcane Intellect. This is a bit tricky because depending on how your deck is set up, you might not want too many of these. If you have a lot of Gnomish Inventors or Cult Masters or things that draw you cards, you don't actually need these. That said, in Mage, I generally like to have at least one because I feel that my Mage decks are usually quite control-ish, and drawing more cards gives you more options and lets you reach Flame Strike better. In this case, I have no real other sources of advantage, so Arcane Intellect is pretty good in my deck. Excuse me. Polymorph. Almost strictly worse than Fireball, and I mean I only say almost because it's good at dealing with Iron Bark Protector, which Fireball doesn't deal with, and things which are 8 toughness and above, or yeah, it's not even that much better than Fireball against like Sunwalker, because you could just ping the Divine Shield and then Fireball the Sunwalker. But still, it's good. Fireball obviously much better. I much prefer Fireball. I think I would always pick Fireball over Polymorph if I had a choice. Well, then again, I think I would pick Fireball over anything if I had a choice. Maybe even Flame Strike. But still, it's still a very good card. It answers anything. Don't be too worried about a 1/1 sheep staying alive. You can easily ping it with a hero power or hit it with a creature. Sometimes you can get a tempo kill by polymorphing a taunt and just attacking past the sheep. That's not too common, but it happens. Yeah, Polymorph, good card. And here we go, Flame Strike. Yes, the do or die card of mages. It's said that how well a mage does depends on how many Flame Strikes he has. Actually, I beg to differ, because if you have a lot of fireballs, you can play the game completely differently and still do extremely well. In fact, I prefer the fireball heavy version than the Flame Strike heavy version. Flame Strike is pretty easy to play around. I mean, you can't play around it very well, but you can kind of guess that it's there, like from the way your opponent is playing. sometimes it ends up doing nothing except killing one minion, which is not the best use for a 7 cost spell. Towards the end, sometimes you have to do it anyway. Depending on your hand, if you have 2 flame strikes in your hand, don't be afraid to use it early on turn 7 to kill 2 creatures. If you have 2 creatures in play, it gives you a big tempo advantage and you can start hitting him, especially if you have burn in your deck, and you can finish him off with various spells such as Fireball or Frostbolt. Yes, also another point to note is that just because it seems like you could play a Flame Strike to a good effect, doesn't mean you should, because when your opponent passes your turn 7 and he hasn't gotten Flame Strike, a lot of people start to think, oh, maybe he doesn't have Flame Strike, maybe I could get lucky and play out all my cards and he will not win via Flame Strike. And that's when the Flame Strike will definitely win you the game. In fact, I have a screenshot showing you kind of the effect of delaying your Flame Strike, and it was done to pretty good effect. I'll try to link it later. It's somewhere on my Facebook page. Yep. Also, because of how Flame Strike works again, 2 and 3 drops in Mage very critical, because on turn 9 and 10 you can play Flame Strike to kill your opponent's board and then play a creature to start getting the tempo advantage in your favor, and you can do it over and over again. So 2 and 3 drops critical in Mage, 4 drops pretty good, 5 drops and 6 drops not so important. Yep. Last but not least, Pyroblast. It's actually not it's not very essential. I don't really like Pyroblast because I feel like the games that you win because you can hit him for 10 in the face, that you wouldn't have won anyway, are not that common, especially in a deck like mine, because my deck is not really an aggressive racing deck. If you had an aggressive racing deck with Fireballs and Frostbolts, yes, Pyroblast is very good. In my case, I had this over 2 poor epics. I think it was Spellbinder and something. So Pyroblast was the pick. Don't actually be afraid to use it on a big creature. If he has a Iron Bark Protector, just fry it and attack him. If he has even Boulder Fist Ogre, that's fine. No hard and fast rule about this. Don't keep it in your hand hoping to finish him off with Pyroblast, because sometimes if you kill his creature, your creatures in play will eventually deal 10 or more damage anyway. Yep. So this is my deck. It's quite a classic Mage control deck, with multiple Flame Strikes, removal, cheap creatures. In a Mage control deck, you don't actually want large creatures. You want to rely on your spells to control the game, such as Flame Strike. It's very different from, say, Druid, where you want big creatures. Yep. So that's it for my deck. Hopefully I will get a video up showing the draft process. I didn't actually intend to make this video, but my deck was pretty good, and I highlighted the good and bad of a Mage deck, so I thought I would bring it up. Yep. And I'll continue to play, and hopefully I do well. Thank you very much for watching.